2 episodes remain, and a lot of the major characters have kicked off new arcs in their respective journeys, while nearly every kingdom has sent out armies. So far, for the most part, they've not done much but march towards their fate and our entertainment. There's war happening in the Reach already, and the Riverlands appears headed for that. There's an approaching resolution or resolutions. But much of our focus is on the Dragon Seeds. The trailer shows and tells us much and more. There's already been reports from San Diego Comic-Con. It was shown last night, very late, to a crowded hall. And having watched live episodes premiere in large groups before, it's an extremely fun experience. It's probably part of the hype is just how much fun that is. But people are calling this the best episode of the season or one of the best episodes. So we'll see about that. Your mileage may vary. Always caution folks to not get too caught up in what other people are saying. That's true for every fandom, not just Game of Thrones House of the Dragon. But it does look like there will be a lot of dragon action this episode. Not necessarily fighting each other. This isn't Rook's Rest, I don't think. But for sure, we will see Syrax, Seasmoke, Vermithor, Vhagar, most certainly Silverwing, maybe Sheepstealer, maybe Caraxes. That's a lot, right? And to help us predict what's coming plot-wise and action-wise and going forward, we have one of our favorites returning. And we have all that and more on this episode of History of Westeros podcast. Hello and welcome back, everyone, to another one of our Saturday spoilery breakdowns. We are previewing what's to come, also referring to foreshadowing that's already happened that we couldn't talk about in our spoiler-free episodes. We include everything from the books, trailers, casting spoilers, but never leaks. You can also catch us on Mondays at 6, where we have our spoiler-free breakdowns, and most Wednesdays at 7, where we do a deep dive. Most of those are spoilery too, but not always. We also have game streams at 6 o'clock on Fridays over at twitch.tv/History of Westeros. Welcome back to the show, Lady Gwyn, one of perhaps actually the most regular guests we've ever had. You and I and Ashaya and Sean in some occasions have talked more about Game of Thrones on TV than any other person we've ever had. And, well, that's why we're having you back, because we always have such a great time with it. You're so insightful, and everybody loves Radio Westeros.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be back. This terrible timing that we couldn't be covering it this season, so I'm really happy to be here to talk with you guys about it.
Heck yeah. Yeah, I know. Life gets in the way sometimes, like dragons or Civil War or, things happening. What are you going to do, right?
I kind of like dragons.
Yeah. If you have any questions for us or Lady Gwyn, send them to us live here in the chat box, or if you're catching this after the fact, hit us up at westeroshistory@gmail.com, and you can always visit our website to interact with us in various ways, find our content, look at our episode searcher, or support us through our sponsors. All those things are there at historyofwesteros.com. The last thing we saw in the 6th episode was Syrax taking off, which is kind of a cliffhanger because she literally jumps off a cliff to get airborne, which I guess that's a feature of Dragonstone. Pretty cool. Makes sense. Yeah, that's why that location was so perfect for dragons in the first place. We saw Caraxes do that in episode 1, take that same cliff dive. And we have Rhaenyra saying a line, "You stand with a dragon of House Targaryen." Probably something else is said in between this next line, which is, "What do you want?" And we don't hear a response, but I like to think something along the lines of, "I want my dad to notice me," but that's who knows if that's what he's going to say. More seriously, though, the book version just says, "When Adam of Hull mounted Seasmoke, Lord Corlys petitioned for him and Alan to be legitimized. He brought them both for the sowing." So he presented them as options when the sowing was going to take place, and then this happened. So in the book as well, Rhaenyra hesitates a little bit, but Jace urges her to go forward with it, which might be a little different from how the show is portraying it, because as we'll see in a minute, Jace is upset with how some of this is developing. So this might cleanly resolve the succession of Driftmark, huh? Like, it seems like they might just be like, okay, Alan gets Driftmark and Adam gets the dragon, and that's nice and clean. The books is not quite so clean, is it, Lady Gwyn? Because Adam is older and gets the dragon.
Correct. Yeah. And Alan is just his cheerleader younger brother, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way they go. They've obviously made Alan older for a reason. So.
And you had an interesting idea about this shot that we see with Alan in armor and a cloak on a beach. He's handing a rolled message to somebody. And I like your idea, your thought here.
Yeah, I think that, he's wearing a Valyrian breastplate, which could just be a factor of, he's accepted this commission to be on Valyrian ships, but I think he's possibly talking to his little brother, handing him the scroll that is their, legitimization, telling him what their father's kind of done for them finally, because we have seen the dialogue between the two where Adam is very doubtful that Corlys will ever do anything for either one of them, never mind recognize them. So and we do see, if you go back to the past, there's some important scenes that take place on that same beach with Rhaenyra. So
true, that seems like that beach that. It's an active beach, it's a plot beach. It might be the same beach. Is that the same beach maybe where Jace and Luke were training? No, I guess that would have been maybe. That seems closer to Dragonstone. Yeah.
Last scene.
We're not actually sure where this is. This random landing spot. I almost said landing spot, but
yeah. As far as the actual shooting, is it the same beach where they've shot past scenes?
Yeah, you're right. It's probably more likely to be the same beach in real life than in the show. That's a good point.
Right.
So yeah, I'm very curious about how the legitimization, whether that's going to happen in this episode or whether that part's going to be delayed a bit. It's pretty easy for them to push that out or for them to just jump right to it. It would require some conversations, I suppose. I mean, Corlys has not spoken to Adam at all. He has spoken to Alan some. Actually, they've had a few conversations, really, but it's been pretty businesslike. It's been pretty much about duty and the war and ship stuff, naval business, not family at all. And the one time it threatened to be slightly familial when Rhaenys was there, he's like, "Don't you have duties? Get back over there."
Right.
Which was how he excused himself before. It's like, "I have duties." Yeah,
I don't think it's a conversation anyone wanted to have.
No.
Up till this point. So yeah.
Now, another interesting curiosity here, Lady Gwyn, what do you think about this? They obviously look like dragon seeds in the book, but that's very changed here. In the show, Adam doesn't, and Alan has the feature, but he hides it. It's his hair, of course. And Mouse, who is so far not named, Marilda would be her real name. Mouse was her nickname in the book. That's their mother. She doesn't announce who they are in the book. It's a little bit of like a Dana the Defiant situation where everybody kind of knows, but she doesn't make it official. And it becomes official when they prove themselves like this. So it really seems not unlikely they'll go a similar direction here in the show, but I don't know. There's other options, I guess. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I was very excited when they showed Alan shaving his head, and I thought, God, what's wrong with, you should see a bald guy in Game of Thrones in this universe.
It always sets off alarm bells.
So
what are you hiding?
Hadn't seen that coming, so that was exciting. So I wonder. So this is kind of a lot, but in the books, Adam and Alan are presented as Rhaenyra's sons, but then if there's doubt, Mushroom says they're Corlys's sons, and there's kind of all this doubt. I've always kind of thought maybe given a little more weight to Rhaenyra because of the dragon riding bit, but obviously that's not what they're doing here because they're far too old. They've been aged up like everybody else. They're not going to be Rhaenyra's sons, and it seems pretty clear that they're being presented as Corlys. So one of the things I wondered is if maybe Mouse might have some Valyrian background.
That's possible, yeah.
How they kind of get around explaining where the dragon riding bit, because Corlys is Valyrian, but he doesn't really seem to have Targaryen blood.
Yeah.
The family tree, such as we know it, goes back pretty far without him having any direct Targaryen ancestry. So if that's a requirement, I tend to think it is, but your mileage may vary on that.
Yeah.
It's always being presented as
ambiguous. Yeah.
Ambiguous.
I'm guessing the show will preserve a lot of that ambiguity, but
yeah,
maybe
they seem
not.
to be doing that.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know how they would
again,
not. Like, how are they going to have? They're not going to have definitive answers. I don't think, like blood tests or what have you. Yeah,
exactly. They can't do that. But I mean, they have presented this backstory for Hugh and Ulf. Plausible Targaryen background that we're going to see with the other seeds. They even did this sort of retconning of Steffan Darklyn having Targaryen blood, but maybe it wasn't quite enough.
Yeah.
So, which honestly would be about the level of where Corlys and any of his children would be. That's sort of like not quite enough, even if it does exist past where we have the family tree going to. So I don't know. They're doing a good job making it ambiguous. And of course there's the other dragon seed who's definitely been changed into a Targaryen rather than an ambiguous unknown quantity. So
yeah, it's one of the easiest things to do is just stick some Targaryen ancestor who doesn't have to have the name Targaryen. They can just be descended from a Targaryen in your family tree somewhere. It's pretty easy to sneak that in, especially if you don't specify it. But is it enough? That's the question. Is it a trait that can linger that long? And you bring up Rhaenyra Velaryon in our notes here. For those who don't recall, Rhaenyra Velaryon was the mother of Aegon, Rhaenys, and Visenya, and she was half Targaryen herself. So that implies she married a Targaryen father because she would have the Velaryon name. Or sorry, a Targaryen mother, rather.
Right, so she had the Velaryon name. But one thing you see throughout the Targaryen family tree is every time sort of the Targaryen blood escaped via a female marriage to someone who wasn't part of their family. In the next generation, they scoop that person back in, like Rhaenyra Velaryon.
Yes, the
Emma
situation
Aaron.
with Stannis and Robert and Renly is
they got a little
like
sloppy
that.
after the dance.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. That's like, okay, that's two generations.
Dance, it was very much, okay. Emma Aaron, she's coming back.
It's not too incestuous. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Emma, that's one of the most perfect examples. Yeah. Emma's almost exactly the same scenario as Valena. Yeah, and it's really just to dodge the faith's issues with. I was like, well, we don't like the incest. Well, we're gonna do the incest sometimes, but we won't do it all the time because you guys don't like it. So we'll compromise. Yeah. Now. It's funny, the very idea of dragon seeds, according to Mushroom, came from Mushroom. The whole suggestion in the first place, which we haven't seen any Mushroom in the show, so I don't know. We'll see where, if they reference that or... The fact, again, it's like I just said, it's so easy to say, well, this person has some sort of Targaryen ancestry. It's not that hard to just... wing that.
No, we've already seen them do it. I want to know who's going to get this line. Under the sheets and in the wood piles, wherever you Targaryen spilled your silver seed.
Even their seed is silver? Come on.
Apparently. Please make someone
Yours
say
isn't?
that.
I shan't be describing my seed.
Not as silver or anything else.
Yes, the color is shocking, actually. She loves Fan TC, sends a super chat, is excited for tomorrow. Yes, we are too. It's going to be great. Do you have the vibe that it's going to have that penultimate episode feel to it? Because it's not an episode 9. Usually penultimate episode is the episode 9 because you usually have 10 episode seasons. So it's like, well, they probably still want to do that. Like, people will be so disappointed if you don't have that, like, big something. And the something really seems like the dragon seeds. So the sowing seems like the trailers really indicate that. I mean, there's other things clearly it indicates too. Like Harrenhal is not going to have anything to do with dragon seeds, and that seems to be getting a resolution too. But we'll talk about Harrenhal later. Let's talk more about the dragon seeds because that does seem to be the big exciting part of this episode. The main feature, as you may say. So we have a shot of Jace on the battlements with Cyrax and Sea Smoke in the background there, kind of arriving in the trailer in full motion. He looks a little frustrated, which of course you kind of get why, because Rhaenyra again ran off without telling anyone what she was doing. It looked a little dangerous. She's done this a few times, and that doesn't make her counsel comfortable. It makes them very nervous. Understandably, like, yeah, the queen just running off on her dragon to go chase after some other dragon with who knows who riding it. That is a little like concerning. Yeah, like maybe she should have. Anyway, so I imagine Jace will complain, and maybe some other people will too. We'll see. And we also have Jace maybe connected to this complaint, this frustration. There's this line he says, House Targaryen is the blood of the dragon. If any may lay claim to it, what are we then? And this scene takes place in that library we've seen a bunch of times. I love this library. It's so I wish I could be in this library with all these scrolls. Is Jace having second thoughts, or is this more about the fact that these are lower born people? These are randoms rather than someone they selected. Like they selected Sir Stefan. He's the Lord Commander of the Queen's Guard. Presumably that was a big part of why. That's someone they thought they could trust. These are just completely like they didn't even know who this person. They didn't know who Adam is. So is that how you interpret this, or is there maybe a little more to it? Like his own heritage maybe plays into this somewhat, like in his own look.
Yeah, I wonder. I mean, it could be that he's having second thoughts because if they put out this open call, and certainly in Fire and Blood, people who had no Valyrian and no dragon blood came and tried to claim dragons.
Yeah,
it didn't go well. So it could be that he's concerned about that possibility, because I think if that's his point, in the end, he's going to be proven right, or at least no worries, because everyone that gets a dragon does actually seem to have Targaryen, or at least Valyrian. See the conversation about Adam. So they are definitely plausibly all bearing the blood of the dragon. But I think what he really means is that who are all these small folk? Where did they come from? And why are we giving them dragons? Which is maybe a valid question.
It's certainly an interesting question, right? Like, this is something we haven't touched on very often, and it's kind of uncomfortable. But yeah, these are royals. They don't think highly of the commoners. They have attitudes about lowborn people that are going to make a lot of viewers uncomfortable, because we all identify with the lowborn a lot more than we identify with Targaryens. Like, we don't have dragons. If war was happening in our city, we would probably be the ones like looking for food rather than the ones like making decisions about what to do. Like we're not ruling. So that's going to be, assuming that's what happens, because it is a part of the books, it is a reasonable prediction. Rhaenyra is not a big fan of the small folk, and I don't really know what Jace thinks of them in the books. And this doesn't seem like he's a big fan. These quotes, so it could get really interesting, and that could cause a lot of friction, and it could set up part of the eventual betrayals of Ulf and Hugh. I mean, there's going to be a lot of other factors there. It won't just be because people are mean to them, or people talk down to them, or people are a little arrogant towards them. There's all sorts of other elements like power and loyalty and other things like Laris getting involved or people offering them things. But I do think that it's one of the many things that could contribute to the eventual betrayals that happen. Do you think that's maybe part of this too?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Right on. Let's talk about this next shot. We got Rhaenyra on a balcony with Mysaria and Sir Lawrence behind. This balcony looks kind of similar to the shot we had last time when they were looking back at Sea Smoke. And yeah, so this is probably part of the sowing. This might be just her observing with Lawrence and Jace watching, and just, whatever happens. It's like, uh-oh. Yeah, they look kind of high up there. This also reminds me a little bit of the shot of Damon in season 1 when he went to go visit Vermithor, and we know Vermithor is part of this, so yeah, it seems pretty likely.
This scene, I don't want to sidetrack us, but I saw Mysaria standing there, and of course in the book she's not here present on Dragonstone at this point, but who is present with Rhaenyra, who takes an awful lot of credit unto himself for being her very close counselor in the histories, is Mushroom. And he says, in this dark hour, I became the queen's counselor, setting aside my fool's scepter and pointed hat to lend her all my wisdom and compassion. So I just saw this shot. I was thinking earlier, is Mysaria mushroom in this in this setting?
I think that's the translation. Mysaria in High Valyrian means mushroom, right? No, I'm just kidding.
Probably. Like, is David Peterson around?
Yeah, where's David Peterson when you need him? What is the translation for mushroom? That is an interesting, by the way, this is an interesting observation you made. I really like it, and I think it's fitting. But also, it just goes to show a lot of what people were saying about Rhaenyra and Mysaria from last episode. Is Rhaenyra is lonely. She's isolated. In the book is showing it here. Mushroom can say this because, well, maybe there's a shred of truth to it, but also because there wasn't any other person she had as a confidant. She didn't have like a trusted right-hand man or woman or person or fool. So yeah, fungus, my trusted fungus.
My trusted fungus.
So yeah, so that's just also a little more of showing that, yeah, Mysaria being the person to step in here actually makes a lot more sense than mushroom, if your theory is right, which, yeah. And Mysaria wasn't on Dragonstone at this point in the book, so yeah, it's a pretty good little swap, if assuming more of this is carried over. Now, we know that Silver Dennis was cast, but obviously he's not going to be trying Sheepstealer. Well, probably not, because Sheepstealer is in the Vale. And that's not a big deal. Just switch which dragon this person tries. So Silverwing and Vermithor, probably one of those two. Now, we haven't seen Silverwing yet. Vermithor we've seen a couple times. Well, once in an episode and once in these trailers. And if you count images from before the season started, we've been seeing this one shot of Vermithor with Rhaenyra in front, this really epic shot that we've been seeing for quite a while. So a couple questions here. Do you think do you basically think the same thing here about Silver Dennis knowing he's cast? They'll just have him try a different dragon, probably.
I think he will try for Silverwing. I know we're going to see Silverwing. We've seen the art from wherever, I don't know, see pictures of Silverwing. So I feel confident that we will see her. And don't forget that when Silver Dennis tries for Sheepstealer, he fails, gets his arm ripped off, and as his sons try to help him get away to safety, Cannibal sweeps in and devours them all. So I would guess it's Silverwing and then Vermithor standing in for Cannibal.
Oh yeah, so you think Vermithor will be the one who sweeps in? Okay, that makes sense, because yeah, I'm not going to sit here and predict they're going to spend money on the Cannibal. I would love to see it, but it really
would that be nice?
I would love it, yeah. But I really my analyst's mind overrules my fan's heart on that one. Like, yeah, I doubt it.
Yeah.
One I'm not so sure about is Gorman Massey. He tries in the book to mount one of the dragons, and it doesn't go well. He is on Rhaenyra's council. He hasn't had a line the last few episodes, but he's presumably still there. I wonder if he's going to be one of the ones who tries, which would be an interesting wrinkle, because he's obviously not some lowborn commoner. But yeah, I'm curious about that. He's also not on her council in the book, although we don't know who her Master of Laws was, and so it's just kind of. I think that's why they put him in this role, because they're like, well, the book doesn't give Rhaenyra a Master of Laws, so we're going to make it this Gorman Massey guy it.
And it would make sense if he's going to be in this role in the sowing.
Yeah.
To have him introduced in the same way that they've introduced, what's his name? Who has now been sent off who is on her council, Alfred Broom. Was definitely not on her council in the books.
Yeah, right.
But he's a character that we want to know for the future, so he's been introduced.
Yeah, I wonder if he'll. Speaking of him, I wonder if he'll show up this episode. We kind of thought he would last episode, and he just still traipsing across the Riverlands. It's not hard to understand why he might have been delayed, but
it'd be nice if he traipsed right into Vagar or something. But.
Yeah. Whoops. My bad. Yeah.
One can hope.
Yeah. Right. Sweep him right under the broom. Him right. Yeah. Thousands will die, is a line Rhaenyra says, and I mean that's true. I'm not entirely sure of the context, but yes, she's not lying. She says, with these dragons, peace will be restored. So that's kind of an opposing statement. Maybe she's saying if we don't do this, thousands will die. Maybe she seems to think that if one side gets an overwhelming dragon advantage, then the Greens will have to give up, or they will lose because they'll lose, because this is an overwhelming advantage. So, you think that's wishful thinking, or maybe that's? I mean, we know how the book goes. Peace will not be restored with these dragons. So, I guess we could say that it is wishful thinking.
I think so. I mean, I think that she's kind of showing her, maybe her naivete here. I mean, they've made some points about, the men on the council like to tell her that she's, doesn't know anything about war. And then she made the great counterpoint that neither do they, because there hasn't really been a war for them to have been involved in. But so I think to take that point, they're all just learning about what this war means. And nobody knows what a war between when both sides have dragons. That has not occurred in the history of Westeros. So, I think maybe this is just wishful thinking. She's showing that she would love to restore peace, but I don't see how that happens when you unleashed nuclear weapons all over the place.
Right. Yeah. And she also doubted that other people would even try. She's like, they saw what happened to Darkland. No one's going to try. Like, yeah, she's a little off there with her thinking. People will take a lot of risks to be a demigod, which is effectively what they would be in this setting. I mean, I've mentioned it before. It's not a hard concept to explain in the real world. People will do crazy stuff for views, for clicks on social media. So this is a lot more powerful and more risky. But like people will do walking over canyons without rope and just tightrope walking, or standing on top of a skyscraper on one foot and balancing on one hand. Like there's way less reward in that, and equalish risk, perhaps. Maybe a little less risk. I don't know. The risk is a little harder to measure, but still, it's a huge risk either way. And so, yeah. What do you tell me some more about what you think about this dragon seed scenario? I see you have some great notes here from the book that I think is very relevant.
Yeah. Well, you said demigods, so I thought there's this quote about seeds, and it is about the origin of seeds, and really makes the point that they have always been kind of a feature of life. They're not a bug that just appeared here during the dance. They've always been a feature of life on Dragonstone. And the quote is, though the first night was greatly resented elsewhere, as Queen Alicent had learned in her women's councils, referring, of course, to Alicent's crusade to end the right of first night across the country, such feelings were muted on Dragonstone, where the Targaryens were rightly regarded as being closer to gods than to the common run of men. Here, brides thus blessed upon their wedding nights were envied, and the children born of such unions were esteemed above all others. For the lords of Dragonstone oft celebrated the birth of such with lavish gifts of gold and silk and lands to the mother. These happy bastards were said to have been born of dragon seed, and in time became known simply as seeds. So this is a great point, that this has actually been going on for many, many generations. Probably all the centuries that they've lived here on this island.
And we see the same version of this in King's Landing when we get to see one of Aegon's bastards in episode 9, I believe it was. It was like, yep, that's what they're talking about. That's what this quote's referring to, except it on Dragonstone instead of King's Landing, but it's still just Targaryen princelings just, doing their thing, especially when they're really young. So this great shot of people walking up to Dragonstone, good chance these are the group of dragon seeds, and then we have another shot of a bunch of people getting on ships at dusk. And there's another angle here where you can see very light-colored hair. A couple of light-colored haired people. One of them is very clearly Hugh. Maybe we see Silver Dennis there. Maybe we see Ulf. Ulf's hair is a little harder to spot, but he's probably in this group too. And that pretty well explains it. We'll come back to this part a little later. Maura Lee says, it's just a show of love and support. Sends a super chat. Thank you, Maura Lee. We appreciate it. And we love cats. Cats, everybody. Yeah. Maura Lee is our biggest cat fan, and we are cat fans. So it always makes me want to shout out cats. Let's go to Harrenhal, though. Let's go to Harrenhal, a place that cats have not been seen, but we have seen goats and dogs and other strange things and bats. King's Landing needs cats, but we'll also come back to there. So we got Tully soldiers on the march riding to Harrenhal. There's Oscar. It's pretty cool. We got some lines. It says, It looks like Oscar is not such a pushover. He says, "It does seem to me that you've made rather a mess here." It's like, yeah, that's an understatement, isn't it? And Damon kind of maybe a little later in the conversation, or maybe a pretty similar, maybe, I don't know, maybe even a different conversation, but he's definitely addressing Oscar. He says, "Whose side are you on?" You know, and I think we all wonder that too. But we have a great shot. Yeah, it's kind of smiling at him, but I wonder if that's like a wry smile, or like if he's just trying to win him over. Damon's just trying to like not lose his temper here. You know, like, damn this kid, you know. He's
like, this kid, honestly.
Yeah. But Oscar's like, this king, like, what the hell is his problem? Like, this guy sucks. Like, why are you making this like you? I would use much stronger language, but I'm a very presentable, well-spoken young man. I'm not like you.
That's like the very, very British understatement. You've made rather a mess here. That's classic English.
Yeah, that's so good. So there's this awesome shot of lots of river lords out by the heart tree. You could see Willem Bracken there in his kind of crimson cloak. Oh, sorry, Willem Blackwood facing two Brackens. My bad, yeah. And Sir Simon is leading Damon and Oscar towards the center here, and then we have the next shot where Oscar is kind of in the middle. I guess he's making a speech of some kind. Damon is standing by Sir Simon at this moment, and you can still see Willem Blackwood in there. I don't see Amos Bracken, but he might be one of those Brackens. It's hard to tell. Lady Mallister has a great line to apparently to Oscar. Maybe it's to Damon or to somebody else. She says, "The old ways..." Well, it looks like she's saying it to Oscar from this shot anyway. "The old ways call for justice." Right, like that's good. And Lady Gwyn, you appreciate that this character is kind of the one leading the charge here, don't you?
Very much so. House Mallister is a first men house. They go all the way back to the old days of Torgon Grey Iron, which was during the Age of Heroes. So they definitely have that long history of first men in the Riverlands. And I think Lady Mallister is challenging this very young, very wet behind the ears new Lord Paramount to deliver justice personally, and that justice, I think, is owed to Willem Blackwood. I think that would be because
seems likely.
He's the one that perpetrated atrocities against the Bracken. So I think that it's likely that with the pressure from the rest of his lords, that Oscar Tully's going to have to execute Willem Blackwood, which will clear the way for Benjicott, I hope.
That's pretty much the same theory I had. I totally agree. It seems kind of like the straight line you can draw to this. I'm not really sure what other options we have. Especially because we have what looks like an execution scene that we've been seeing since the beginning of the season of Damon swinging his sword out by the heart tree. So that could be this very thing. Another theory is that he's killing Alfred Broom.
Yes, I would cheer for that.
But that's the only other one I could even come up with, you know.
If that happens, I still hope that we get Black Alley killing Amos Bracken.
Yeah, that would be nice.
That'll be in the future.
Yeah,
please.
So we don't see Alice in the trailer. We might see her at some point. You never know. She's sneaky, and maybe she's watching from her owl.
This is the view, yeah.
Yeah, that's the view. Yeah, this is the view of the owl.
That's Alice's view.
A bird's eye camera. That's right. It's just an owl. This bird. So dreams are the question. Is he going to have more dreams? He definitely reached a huge turning point in his dreams last week. It was like a culmination. So you could kind of see it ending. You could kind of see maybe no more dreams. However, the trailer looks like there's at least one more because he's facing someone that is holding Rhaenyra's crown, which could be Rhaenyra. It could be a dream of her, because we've seen Millie Alcock with that crown. We've also seen Patty with that crown.
That hand looks old.
That hand looks old. Oh, you're right. I didn't notice that. It is kind of dark, but the hand does look old. Good point. So it could be like, if it's not Viserys, Jaehaerys? Like, who another old person could be? I mean, dreams, it's a dream, probably. So it's... Yeah. We shouldn't take it too literally in terms of the details meaning one thing or another, but it looks like a dream. Let's just say that, and the crown is involved.
Agreed. Yeah.
So do you think this maybe will be the last stream, or maybe it'll continue?
No, I think this will be the final dream because you've seen him seeing Damon dealing with a lot of his internal issues. He's kind of working out all of his, whatever, his jealousy about his brother and other family members, including his wife, the loss of his mother, his guilt over blood and cheese. He's been just working it all out. That's what these dreams have all been about. So I think this final dream might be the one that resolves his internal conflict with Rhaenyra.
Something to do with his claim, you think, whether he pursues it? Yeah, I think that's pretty likely.
Maybe he's grown enough inside to say, I don't want the crown.
Accepting that guilt is a pretty big deal. Yeah, telling his brother that he should have been there. Yeah, that's a big turning point.
A lot of that, yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean we can predict what he'll do next. It does seem that we can predict he'll get the army he wants. I do think that's because of the book. It seems that would be a humongous change for it to go some other way of him not winning the army. And then from there, it's a pretty quick run to King's Landing and maybe taking the city. Do you think we'll see that this season? Do you think he'll take King's Landing this season? Because there's no battle, so it wouldn't necessarily... well, in the book, there's no battle. It's just the Gold Cloaks open the gates, the dragons arrive, it's the blockade moves in to become an invasion, and the Greens are like, we've got nothing.
That could happen in like the last 5 minutes of episode 8.
Ooh.
But episode 8 has to have a lot of other stuff in it as well. I mean, I would assume that that there's a couple of battles, a land battle in the Riverlands and obviously a naval battle that are major happenings that have to happen before they take King's Landing. So if they take King's Landing, it's going to be just, quick shot of them going through the gates or something.
Yeah, it could be like the last thing of the whole season maybe, or something like that.
Because that's what I kind of thought all along. That's how this season would end. But as we get sort of now pressed for time, like trying to figure out how that works out. And I don't see it being really a played out storyline in these 2 episodes.
That's a lot.
Just, yeah. So.
So I agree. I think it's going to go that way, but it's tricky to see whether they'll go straight for King's Landing or it seems like they can't. There's got to be the Western Army has to be dealt with, and the Northern Army is heading down. Like that was part of the whole twins plot. So here's another
set up.
Here's
the
another
feed has to happen.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. It's too cool of a battle to not have some version of it. Even if they do it Burning Mill style, where they just show the bodies afterwards, which I'm okay with that. I would prefer to see it, but I'm understanding that we're definitely not going to see every single battle in the dance. That's ridiculous. So some of them are going to get cut.
They have to show it. They've set up these lions in cages.
Yeah, you're right.
And those lions have to have a role to play. So I assume that they're going to be dragon food or something.
Oh my gosh, Caraxe's eating lions! Wow.
I don't know. I just I really expect to see more from those lions. So I would assume that's maybe in episode 8.
That is not something I'd considered.
I said it in our last episode
of the dragons eating lions.
I said I wanted a dragon to eat a lion.
Oh.
And you're just releasing a lot of content all the time.
Yeah.
The symbolism of a dragon eating a lion.
Yeah. Yeah, you did say that, didn't you? Now I remember that. Yeah,
I said I wanted a lion to eat Jason Lannister, and I wanted the dragon to eat the lion.
I remember that's right.
Life,
that's the part I remembered is you talking about the lion eating Jason. Like it gets free and then eats his master, and then
and then whoopsie, that lion gets eaten. So Jason gets eaten by Of course, we know what happens to Jason Lannister. This is the book stream, but they could change how he dies to make me happy.
His death, like they could give it to Lion Leaf the Long Slayer.
That's my other question. Is Pate the Lion Slayer going to actually slay a lion and a lion? Like, is he going to do both?
Maybe.
I don't know.
Literal lions?
A real lion?
That one of the things about House of the Dragon is that I've heard people say is there's not enough. It needs a little bit more comedy. Like Game of Thrones was pretty good at throwing in some sort of like wisecracks.
Yeah.
Obviously, and Tyrion and other characters who are good with the jokes, and we don't get a lot of that. And I think it would be funny to see Jason Lannister eaten by his own lion.
now that we're talking about it a second time, I want it even more.
Yep, like you arrogant twit, rolling around with lions in cages. You got what you deserve.
Lannister reversal. Full Lannister reversal. And we could all be watching that while enjoying a glass of wine. Yes, yes. That's the thing to do, is to drink wine while watching Lannisters get consumed by their own sigil animal. Just as we probably will see dragon lords get eaten by dragons, why not lion lords eaten by lions? You know, there's many ways to do this. So many animals, so many sigils.
Very, very poetic.
So little time. Speaking of wine, if you are going to be in the New York area or already live in the New York area on August 3rd, that's next Saturday, come join us at City Winery Chelsea, where we will be doing an episode like this. It'll be a little less spoilery, a lot less spoilery, actually, because we'll be talking to a live audience, many of whom will not be on the same page about some of these things, but we'll have a lot to talk about. Nevertheless, we have a whole season to go over, non-spoilery predictions to make, guesses about episode 8. It'll be a lot of fun. You can come out there. If you come in costume, well, we will cheer you and praise you, as well as give you prizes. So lots of reasons to do that, and come have a lot of fun with us. It's not going to be a big group, so come out. It'll be like intimate. We can all hang out and chat and enjoy the season, and just have a couple glasses of wine. Shea, remind them where the link is and how to find it.
You can go to bit.ly/howlivenyc, or you can go to the sidebar on our website to get to the ticket link. It's also in the live stream chat.
Right on. Yeah, we hope to see you there. It's going to be a lot of fun, and it's a great way to finish off the season and think about what's coming next. Also, if you are around on Fridays, make sure to check out my game streams. We're doing Renly Baratheon right now. We married Marjorie Tyrell earlier in the timeline and had 9 children. But then the Great Spring Sickness hit, and stuff happened, and it got real.
And Renly's like, see, Laenor? It's possible.
You can do it. You can do it, Laenor.
As a all along. Come on.
I actually joked about having 7 daughters. Just like, it'd be fun to have 7 daughters. And I had 7 daughters. Like, I had no control over this. And 2 sons as well. But I was actually joking about having only 7 daughters and no sons, because that would be, create a fun situation with succession. But alas. We had a boy. Named him Zeus. We had 2 children, Zeus and Poseidon, which had to be stormy names, right? Because we're Baratheon. So we have a girl named Gale, and a girl named Tempest, and a girl named Stormy. Yeah, that's right. So check us out. That's twitch.tv/History of Westeros. She Loves Fan TC says, I think Daeron's ancestry is the bigger story. Daeron's ancestry, I wonder if they're going to do anything with that. There's certainly room for them to play with that, having him off page, or maybe having him have brown hair. Do you think there's any surprises in store for us with Daeron? I don't think we'll see him this season, so it's one of these long-range predictions. But hey, there's always a chance he pops up at the end of this, like in episode 8, just as a quick one. They almost never do that, though.
Yeah. I honestly don't know. I don't know what to make of Daeron, the kid that didn't exist in season 1, and now they talk about him like he's always been there. And, I'm not really sure where they're going with this, so I'll be ready for anything.
Right on. Yeah, that's probably a good attitude to take. Be ready for anything. See what they do with Daeron. Because even when they cast him, it won't tell us anything, because he could have brown hair as a cat. That doesn't mean anything. Right. Tom Taylor has blonde hair, and he's just playing a brown-haired Stark. So, and Tom Glencarney doesn't have white hair, so lots of Toms in the casting.
Ewan Mitchell, on the other hand, went full Targaryen and bleached his hair blonde during the press lead-up for House of the Dragon. I don't know if you guys saw that.
He's like really living the life. Yeah, he's like, I like being a Targaryen. I don't want to be I want to keep that even when I'm off not acting.
I want to chase this feeling.
Yeah, I just can't get that feeling anywhere else. He goes out and rides those bucking broncos at those bars, just to repeat the feeling of being on Vagar. This is not quite the same. Ranabir Mitra says, considering that Rhaenyra and Alicent's arcs in the show are going in opposite directions, how do you envision the circumstances which prompts Alicent to ask Rhaenyra to split the kingdom in half? Will it be after the fall of King's Landing? Also, will this be at a point when Alicent resumes a sense of power in the royal family, considering that she's kind of lost her power right now? Yeah, that is an interesting point. Like, will she regain the kind of power that allows her to do that? Or is this just not a kind of thing that the show isn't going to do? It's entirely possible the show doesn't have Alicent make that suggestion. You can see her doing it. Like at this point in the war, the southern portion of the Reach is not entirely in Hightower hands. They're fighting the Tarly Beesbury army, but they certainly have more power there. And I don't know. I'm guessing they might just skip that, the whole suggestion of splitting the realm. But I could see it happening. But I do struggle to see how some of these scenes will happen. Like, is Alicent going to be captured and be in Rhaenyra's clutches? That would be very interesting. It would allow them to have a lot more conversations. On the other hand, it's like, well, if they were going to have more of these conversations to come, did they really need to sneak this pre-war conversation in? You know, because we have this shot of her being outdoors, and this is outside of King's Landing, which is like the first time she's like Cersei in a lot of ways, not character-wise, but in that she just is rooted to one place. And we haven't seen her anywhere else until now. This is the farthest we've seen her outside of the city, I think, unless I'm forgetting something.
Except for the hunt, I guess.
Did she? Yeah, she did go. You're right. She went to the hunt.
Yeah, that's when she was with Viserys out by the fire.
Good point. Good point. This is a similar area. This is also the Kingswood, which is where that hunt was. So this is probably not quite as far away. They probably had to go deeper into the woods for the hunt. But she's outside of the city. It would be interesting if the city, since we've talked about the fall of King's Landing, if she just wasn't there for it. That would be a pretty big change from the books. But what if she's just not there and the city falls? Then she could, I don't know, go back to Old Town or Tumbleton, or where would she go if King's Landing is taken while she's not there? She won't go to King's Landing, but where would she go? Harrenhal, where Aemond is? Like, that seems unlikely. If Aaron, I don't know. I would guess into the Reach, somewhere into the Reach. Because we don't know where Otto is either. She would maybe go where he is, but how would she find that out? You know, it's tricky.
Yeah.
What do you think, Lady Gwyn?
I think she'll be right in King's Landing.
Okay. Yeah, keep it simple, huh? Okay. Yeah.
I think, she's there in Fire and Blood. She's there, and so is Otto, for that matter. And they're trying to find him and bring him back as we speak in the last episode. So I do think, when she makes that suggestion about splitting the realm, she's completely powerless. She's the queen in chains, and she makes that suggestion when she overhears or gets wind that they're talking about discussing ways to destroy Daeron and Tessarion. Yeah. And so she begs Rhaenyra to make peace. And I think that is in keeping with some of the conversations they've already have had. And I think, and that's a kind of going back and forth. I want peace. You can't have peace. Now I want peace. So I think there'll be this kind of teeter-totter where they're having more conversations, and Rhaenyra's obviously not going to be up for hearing this, having suggested peace herself early on and been rejected. Now this offer would, I'm sure, not be met with any kind of, positivity.
Are you serious?
Like, you're kidding me, right? I came here and made this exact, not to split the realm, but I came here at great risk and tried to resolve things peacefully months ago, and now you're gonna no.
You're right. That does help. That's how that pre-meeting sets up part of what her retort could be, or part of her so that's very good. That could be set up for that. Also, it puts me in the mind of Tyrion after the Battle of the Green Fork and the Battle of the Camps and the Whispering Wood, where they're like, this is a catastrophe. Jaime's captured, let's sue for peace. And Tyrion throws his cup into the fireplace and is like, there's your peace. Like, why would they sue for peace? They're winning. Why would they accept peace? They're beating us. Like, why? It's the same thing. Like, Rhaenyra's like, I just took the capital. Why would I back down now? Yeah, okay, now we should negotiate. Like,
let's split the realm. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. It would be one thing if, like, the Greens had solid, full control of the Stormlands and the Reach. But no, even the Reach is fighting itself, and the Stormlands is doing nothing whatsoever. Because they're afraid, which doesn't... It isn't the thing you look at and go, "Oh, I'm worried about them." The guys that are holding back, they're the real danger here. the Baratheon that's just waiting.
They're like, they took one look at Vhagar killing Luke, and they were like,
You can see why we chose that side, but we don't have to like get in the middle of this.
We don't really want to be involved in this.
Yeah, that's we're married to that guy. He hasn't called for our help. He hasn't asked us to help him yet, so we'll just sit here and wait, So let's go to the Vale. This is interesting. One of the few dragons we have yet to see is Sheepstealer, and this might change on Saturday, and if not, then I guess the following Saturday. I would be very surprised if we don't see. I mean, sorry, Saturday. I meant to say Sunday.
What are you talking about?
Sunday. Sorry. Yeah. Very surprised if we don't see Sheepstealer by the end of the season. We might be seeing Sheepstealer right in this very scene. This might be what Rhaenyra is seeing, looking back and going, "Hey, what's that? Is that a dragon?" It could be a sheep or a lion or one of these other animals we talk about, the trailer makes it look like she turns around and then there's Vagar's coming right at her. That's how the trailer looks like. I kind of doubt that, but that would be hilarious, in a what the hell kind of way. Like Damon, like Aemond really did go to the Vale. Lady Jane wasn't wrong. Vagar's been here before with Visenya. She wanted to come back. She's like, hey, you know what? I haven't visited there in 30 years, 115 years or something like that, a really long time. So what do you think about this?
I think it's great. I think it's classic trailer editing. They do this, they set things up to make you think things are happening. And I have some other thoughts about this a little further down, but this is fantastic. I do think she's looking up in the sky. So I feel like she's seeing or maybe hearing.
Ooh, hearing.
Maybe just like, because there is that big loud dragon screech right before. So she could be hearing. She definitely knows there's a large dragon in the area. So something has caught her attention, and I'd be willing to bet it's Sheepstealer, but maybe not, it might just be more of like, hey, what, I heard that, and we don't actually see Sheepstealer until later after this scene. Yeah.
Well, anyway, Sheepstealer's coming, and we're excited. Another dragon that we've all been picturing in our minds for many years, and we'll finally get to see either this week or next. Yeah, the wild dragons, as we said, we don't expect to see Cannibal and probably not Grey Ghost. Grey Ghost is maybe a little more likely because kind of gets involved in that Sunfire plot, but even that might not happen. I don't call them wild dragons on the show. They're plot light dragons. They have very little plot. They're just really cool. But really cool is not something you can spend millions and millions of dollars on, which unfortunately is what these dragons cost. That's why they're godlike, because they cost so much money to portray. Yeah. And in the book, Sheepstealer is the last wild dragon claimed, or last dragon claimed, period, I suppose you could say, other than like Morning, which isn't really claimed so much as bonded with as a baby, which may not happen if Sheepstealer is Rhaenyra's dragon. There may not be a Morning, which is too bad, because Morning sounds so cool looking. But the order of claiming isn't the most important thing for them to preserve, but, it could be.
Well, something could happen to Sheepstealer.
Yeah, something could.
We talked about that last week with Sanry.
Did you? What was your thought there?
Because Morning is really important. I think to the end of the dance, she's symbolic. She's this beautiful little puff of hope. But that I think that Sheepstealer probably doesn't survive the final battle. If they're going to include Morning, like if they want to go that way, they would just have Sheepstealer, and then Rhaenyra goes back to whatever Rhaenyra was supposed to be doing in Fire and Blood, sitting in the Vale.
That would be kind of interesting. It would be our first example of, I guess our first example prior to Dany of someone with like a close dragon bond to two dragons, and not at the same time.
Yeah.
But like we don't know any other examples. Dany, I think, is an example, arguable example, but theoretically, what was her bond to her three dragons? I don't know. She was closest to Drogon, but you know what I mean. Like she never rode her other dragons, so I'm not really whether she. I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, you see the possibility floated with Aegon trying to hatch another egg and all that.
Oh,
and Rhaenyra actually had a dragon hatch in the book.
That's true. It just died. Yeah,
that died. That was deformed and died. So she did hatch two eggs.
Yeah, she didn't ride the
but,
first one, obviously.
She
but
just never rode the other one.
Yeah, there was a little bit of pre-bonding, I suppose.
So Rhaenyra as a double dragon owner, I guess, is right there. I mean, a lot of the stuff about Rhaenyra really fits in with the storyline they're giving her. Which, by the way, the other thing we talked about when we were discussing this last week was the law of conservation of characters, which we used to talk about all the time on Game of Thrones. So
we sure did. Rhaenyra, this is an example of it here. Ray Nettles is pretty clearly going on right here.
We brought it up to Ryan Condal even. Not the Nettles thing, but the law of conservation of characters.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's a powerful law. It's hard to get around. It applies so well. It explains so much. It enables you to predict much. Applying the law it helps the accuracy of your predictions very well.
Right.
This one I ask almost everybody. This is probably the theory I'm most enamored of. Is of my own theories anyway. There's other ones that came from other people that I'm also enamored of, but to maybe pat myself on the back because this could be wrong. But what do you think of the idea that Otto Hightower will be the one to drink the poison to take out Ulf later, rather than be killed at King's Landing, which is, because if that's going to happen, his death would be like next episode, which he just disappears for all season, repops, and then dies.
And he comes back for a second.
My part of the theory too.
Shaya's theory is also valid. I like her idea.
It could be Gwyn, not Otto.
Yeah, instead of
It depends on if Gwyn dies in the next episode or not.
Right, because Gwyn. And I have notes about that further down. I mean, it's kind of weird because however the King's Landing thing happens, if it's episode 8, but then spills over into season 3, Gwyn Hightower is supposed to be there, but we've just seen him march off to the Riverlands. So
yeah, he could die in the Riverlands fighting there. Yeah. It could just be the same zero, saying that he dies. But
yeah, but I do like him coming back and being somehow, I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're going to make him part of the Gold Cloaks, because even if he somehow made it back,
too late for that. Yeah, it feels like
too late for that. So I like that.
He's literally heading in the other direction towards Harrenhal, right?
Yeah. Basically, Aziz and I both think they're not going to introduce another Hightower, and they're not going to make it be Aemond. So it's probably going to be Otto or Gwyn that does it.
Right. That makes sense. They've spent some time on him, so it would make sense.
Here's another potential example, the law of conservation of characters that we have debated a little, and get your take on this, that the Stark army will be led by Cregan and not Roddy the Ruin. Maybe Roddy the Ruin will still exist. He might be a character just standing in the background, some big dude with a white beard. And maybe he'll still be the guy to kill Ormond and Brynden Hightower, just do something epic in the Battle of Tumbleton just because they want to keep that because it's so awesome. But Cregan Stark, they've already introduced him. Are they going to introduce some other Stark guy? Like, it would be so epic to have him be the one to deliver the line to Kristen Cole. Like, we'll have no brave son, because that is said by Roddy, so it could be Cregan instead. Right. What do you think of that?
I love that, because he is the only Northman we know right now. It would require, I think. Look how early they introduced Alfred Broom in order to get people to know who he is and build up an arc for him. It's a lot of build up to introduce on the screen, to introduce someone. So to all of a sudden have just some random guy that nobody knows who he is leading the Northern Army would be a little, maybe a little tough to pull off. So I like that a lot.
Right on.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So let's talk about King's Landing. Yeah. There's a shot of Elinda hurrying somewhere in King's Landing. More subterfuge and covert ops for Lady Massey on behalf of Lady Misery, and I am wearing a Mysaria shirt. We see a gold cloak tearing down some sort of black dragon poster. Don't really know what that means, but it seems like that's the call for dragon seeds somehow. This is related. And the firing up of the commons, they're doing their business to get the commons against the greens and calling for dragon seeds, two different things. And as you say, there's more to it as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, they brought the food. Interesting. I didn't have notes about this, but they brought the food in the boats, and now it looks like we're going to see people leaving in those boats, which I think is weird considering they were trying to keep the city closed up. So It feels like a big oversight to leave the mud gate open so that they can all rush down there and get in these boats and sail away.
Feels like you see the corrupt gold cloaks.
Yeah,
Seems
Elinda's
like,
got the gold cloak on her side, it looks like, so she can just kinda...
that's true. So maybe she convinces them to open that one gate or something.
That's consistent with them still being basically Damon's, which is in the book as well. So I think
that is very, very consistent.
They're taking that a step further, I guess, by having it applied to, which got to make sense. Like Mysaria is the connection here, and her having that and those hooks in people. Yeah,
You're right. It's funny because in that scene, or in around that scene, there's a scene of someone riding a horse galloping through King's Landing. It's not Aemond. If it was, I would have been really sure about this, but Cheese's dog has been in every episode since season 2, and someone Sergio in our Discord commented the other day that he feels like the dog is there so that when somebody that we need to really hate kills the dog, we really hate, we hate that person more. And I said, well, it's going to be Aemond. So
don't kill the dog.
I don't know if this is.
That looks like Aemond.
Yeah, it is Aemond.
Because the eye patch.
It definitely is Aemond on the horse.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
I thought I saw someone with a helmet on. You're right. All right. So now I'm really even more.
Well, that just makes you more sure of it. Yeah.
I'm sure he's gonna ride Cheese's dog.
Now that's villainous.
Just trample him. Yeah.
To say that, but I think it's just it's there, and it's gonna just make us hate him even more.
Poor doggo. Jeez.
Sorry, doggo, but that's my prediction.
I'm okay with the lions dying, but not the.
No, that poor dog. I mean,
which is weird because I like cats.
It makes sense because why show him every single?
Yeah.
I mean, other than just like, oh, there's that dog again.
I know. He's destined to, maybe he will claim a dragon. Maybe that's the twist.
Maybe the dog is a seed.
The dog is a real dragon seed here. Which dragon will the dog claim, though? Silverpaw. Vermitail. I don't know. Yeah. Flea smoke.
Yeah. Oh, I love flea smoke.
Yeah, it would be flea smoke if he read that one or wrote that one. So that's interesting. Yes, I'm curious to see how more of Elinda running the subterfuge, running the propaganda game here. I'm enjoying that. I loved the scene at the bar with Ulf and Deanna and Sylvie, just the food and the dancing. Dancing. Can you imagine Aemond doing all that? Like, really? Aemond with feasting and dancing? Like,
right.
He wouldn't know what to do. He'd be so uncomfortable. He'd be like, I don't dance.
He does
I don't even
dancing.
sway.
Dragon dancing.
The dragons are dancing. That's true.
Yeah, that's a difference.
But the Targaryens do not. So let's talk about Alicent outdoors. We talked about her a little bit, but let's return to this for a few other points. Definite Lady of the Lake vibes, right? But you've got some other vibes here too, aren't there?
I vibes. Well, so I saw this and I thought Lady of the Lake, also Ophelia, and I thought it was very ominous. But look again. Look at the shots of Alicent in the woods. She's in an autumnal wood. Now look at the shot of the person in the lake, and that is a winter scene. There's no leaves on the trees. There might even be snow on that rock, and Alicent is definitely not wearing white, and I don't remember her ever wearing white.
Me neither.
So I am not convinced that. I think this is one of those clever editing things that they do in the trailers, and I'm not convinced that that's Alicent, or it's not connected to this, if it is her. But I think it could just as easily be Alice Rivers.
Oh,
I mean, it could be something from a dream, also.
Interesting.
From one of Damon's dreams. It definitely has more of that Riverlands, Harrenhal kind of God's Eye vibe to me. So,
interesting. Yeah, I guess that could be snow. It could just be bleaching on the rock there, but I hadn't thought of that.
We looked at it. Yeah. Yolkboy and I looked at it, and we could all we came up with was maybe. But we do know that in Fire and Blood, right around this time is when the white ravens fly.
They're not wrong. Yeah.
And there definitely are no branches on those trees. And Alicent, I don't remember ever seeing her in white. So this is either a dream sequence, this part of it, if it's her, or it's somebody else.
Okay. Interesting. There is a line she speaks that does appear to be spoken indoors, because we see her saying it. And she says, "All my life I've endeavored to serve both my house and the realm." This is the shot right here. "And somehow none of it matters. And I wonder who she's talking to." Usually she confides in like Kristen Cole, or she had talked to Laris a little. I don't know if she would confide in him, though. This seems like she's always like, holding back with Laris because he wants things and she's uncomfortable and on edge around him. This feels like this doesn't seem like the kind of conversation she would have with Laris, but it's possible. And I really don't know who else it could be. We talked about Gwyn's already gone, so it seems unlikely. Kristen would be maybe someone she would have talked to this way, but he's obviously not there either, unless for some weird reason he comes back. The rest of the council, like who, like her, she's not even on the council anymore. Yeah, Helene. Okay, Helene is an
marginalized.
idea.
I didn't even think of that till just now. But at this point, Alicent's been marginalized. She's not on the council, like you just said. So she could just be, kind of stuck in her quarters with really nothing to do, and talking to Helena, who wouldn't necessarily respond to her because she's off in her own little world.
She's looking at her crickets,
But yeah, I mean, so she could just be kind of, soliloquizing to the room at large, which maybe has Helena in it, but
that would be she could be speaking to herself. That would be funny. Of like, who is it? Who is it? Oh, it's nobody. She's just talking to herself.
Talking to no one, or she's talking to someone who's not paying attention.
She's facing the mirror. She's talking to a handmaiden. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't see it being Laris either. And Gwyn is gone.
Yeah.
It would be the only person that she could have a real serious conversation with, because she had a real good one with him last episode.
But and this by itself just says a lot. Like, well, Alicent as well is just like, who are her allies and friends now? Like, her dad's gone, and she had just started to get along with him. They had just started to work together after being, constantly at odds over various things. So that really says a lot. Yeah, Alicent doesn't have allies, friends. The one child she has there that's mobile is shut her down. She's his weakness, because she softens him and he wants to be hard, in front of the council, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's really interesting. It's a real shift in her character too. And this is what refers to that question we got from Rhaenyra earlier about their power going in opposite directions. I mean, we got Rhaenyra about to apparently get a whole bunch of new dragon riders. Meanwhile, Alicent doesn't even have a council seat anymore, or a son that listens to her. So and given that she's a main character, and the show is centering her more than the book does. It centers Damon and Alicent and Rhaenyra more than the books do. So that could imply changes to her character to maybe keep her going or not. We'll see.
What if she could be talking to Aegon?
That's true, and she's been opening up to him because she's getting softer with him. We saw her apologize to him and actually hold his hand a little, which was it's sad that it took that long, but it was progress.
He doesn't have to be listening.
True, he could be totally asleep.
Same thing
You're
as
right.
Helena. She could just be,
in her own world. Speaking of Helena, any thoughts on her? I mean, did you have a thought on that cricket thing, the non-singing cricket? We really don't know what that means. You're like, nope, me neither.
No, I thought about it at the time. I was just like, I don't know. Where's that going? If it's going. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Maybe it has to do with Daron. That's one theory, because they mentioned he was a musician. Because
he's a musician, yeah.
It seems like a pretty thin guess.
I don't think it's thin at all.
Well, it's thin because we have so little else to get.
It goes directly from that Daron conversation to Helena saying that line. Like, it's the scene before. It cuts right to it. I think it's so. I don't know. I don't think it's thin at all. Personally,
and what does she say? What exactly?
This one stopped singing. Strange.
And if Daron is at war now, he's no longer playing his lute.
Yeah, he's going to stop singing. I think it's predicting a specific thing that he's going to be singing in a scene, and he's going to I think we're going to see him singing.
Maybe the beginning of season 3. We'll see. Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Let's talk about the small council. So we have Laris, Orwyle, Ironrod, and the Prince Regent. It's an opportunity for jokes as this small council is getting smaller. But I suppose Cersei already made that joke. We got a quote for you. Here it is.
You pay me well for these rumors, my gracious queen.
We pay you for the truth, Lord Varys. Remember that, or this small council may grow smaller still.
That was Cersei speaking to Varys, of course, and we could absolutely hear Aemond saying this to Larys. I pay you for the truth. He doesn't like Aemond. He doesn't like Strong. He doesn't like Larys. He doesn't like Strongs. I don't think he likes disabled people very much either. He probably has that prejudice. But we have a line from the trailer speaking of Tessarion and Daeron. Prince Daeron's dragon has taken wing. The Hightower host will be unstoppable. This line is read by Ironrod. Pretty consistent with the book. What we know from the book is we have War in the Reach, and the Alan Tarly and Alan Beesbury unite to harass the much larger host led by Lord Ormond, which is, again, Otto's nephew. And this makes it difficult for the army to move quickly and get to King's Landing. It's bogged down, which is great for the Blacks because the Green's biggest army is stuck. And then it gets more stuck because House Costain emerges from their seat of Three Towers, which is on the big horn, circling around the southwest portion of the continent there. They emerge and start attacking the Hightower host from the rear, which slows them down even further. And then we get this quote.
Worse, reports had reached his lordship that a host equal in size to his own was descending on the Mander, led by Thaddeus Rowan, Lord of Golden Grove.
So Lord Ormond decides he needs a dragon. He's like, well, we can't get anywhere without a dragon. We need a dragon to help us. It's a little bit like what Jason Lannister says, but Lord Ormond in this scenario is saying it after he's had problems. Rather, Jason is just like, before anything happens, he's like, we need a dragon to help us. Although Jason probably isn't that wrong. Obviously, his messaging could use some smoothing out, probably. But no dragon comes to help Lord Ormond in the book. Things just get worse because the Costain army and the Allans all join forces. So there's, instead of a small army, three smaller armies, there's one bigger one. And the Rowan host that Shea just read the quote from, it starts to approach. So they're all of a sudden in big trouble. And that's when Tessarion is unleashed and turns the tide. They're losing, but Tessarion changes the battle, which implies they were a little reluctant to deploy Tessarion in the first place, maybe because she's still kind of small, but things were going so badly that they're like, well, got to do what we got to do. And it works out great. And for the Greens, and bad for the Allans and for the Costains. And then this, of course, down the road from here is Bitterbridge and a lot of these other big events in Tumbleton. So setting that aside for now, if we just focus on this early part, Aemond dismisses it all as relatively unimportant in the book. He's like, if I kill Damon, none of this other stuff matters. And so book Aemond, this next quote is very similar to the attitude we've gotten from show Aemond. Here it is.
Supremely confident in his own prowess as a warrior and the might of his dragon, Supremely confident in his own prowess as a warrior and the might of his dragon, Vhagar, Aemond was eager to take the battle to the foe.
So maybe this is related to the shot of Aemond racing somewhere. It's hard to guess that he's racing somewhere other than Vhagar. And there's a shot of Larys at council looking surprised or something. So maybe they get some news that causes him to, I would guess, something about Harrenhal. Maybe the Kristen Cole sends a raven. How do you interpret this stuff and basically the business with Aemond and Vhagar and the news from the Reach and all that?
Well, I think this is quite a bit obviously going on. I think Aemond did say that he would be in the Riverlands when the time was right. After the Jason Lannister had requested his presence urgently, he said, I'll be there when I'm good and ready to be there. And he sends Kristen Cole off with the army and says, I'll catch up with you later, which is a departure from the books, where he stayed with Kristen Cole's army and basically just marched at the speed of an army rather than flying at the speed of a dragon. It could be that in this scene he's received the news that Damon has left Harrenhal, so he flies out to try and catch him. Maybe he's got some news about the fish feed, happening, about to happen. The the Lannister armies on the march or something of that nature. So I assume he's headed for the Riverlands. I think all the Reach stuff is going to just continue to happen off page as it does in the book, more or less. I doubt we'll see any of that at this point.
Certainly not this season.
Certainly next season, those things that you mentioned, Bitterbridge and Tumbleton, 2 Tumbletons, those are very important and will be a big part of season 3. But
yeah, and there'll be a lot more.
I think it's all just going to be mentioning, this is happening,
yeah,
just to keep it fresh and relevant.
And once the central characters start to be involved in that, then we see more of their presence. Like Ulf and Hugh will be over there, and maybe even presumably the River Lords, a few of them anyway, maybe Black Alley and Benjicott, because they're supposed to be their Red Rob Rivers. So that would justify putting these battles on screen because they have characters we're familiar with, where we're more likely to predict battles that don't have central characters in them being the ones that get talked about, like the stuff with the Allens and Lord Ormond. That's, like you said, even that isn't shown in Fire and Blood, really. We just hear about it, it's as a few lines. Yeah, it's mostly presented to us from the perspective of King's Landing receiving the news rather than, and this is what happened in that battle. Even in the book, it's kind of third person-ish, even though the whole book is third person-ish or narrator.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
And incidentally, this is a lot of why food from the Reach isn't very reliable as a partial or entire solution to the blockade. We've got army. It's not united. When armies are on the march, food becomes more scarce. Just like how the dragons are eating more food now because they're being used more. They're burning more calories. You got 15,000 high towers on the march, burning 3 times more calories than they would in a normal day, so they got to eat more food. So yeah, there isn't really excess food to go around to ship to King's Landing, even if it weren't for all the problems of armies being in the way of those shipments. It's eating more food. Yeah, it's like that's a big deal.
Definitely.
Let's see, what have we not covered yet? There was one other thing here that I wanted to bring up with you. Prediction for. Where is this? Something we skipped earlier. With regards to the Tullys. Yeah, you were wondering about the missing Muppet Tullys. I wanted to come back to that. That's funny, but
my Muppet Tullys,
I know.
Please.
Yeah, I think it's your answer. I think you have the answer, which is that they have erased Kermit because it's a hard name to pull off, and killed Elmo, and just made Oscar now Lord. Like, right?
Oscar is the Tully, and I don't. It's sad. But it is confusing. I mean, it's because you start with Grover, and then you get Kermit. Elmo, and then Kermit.
We hear Elmo referred to. Like they say Elmo, they say Grover. They never say the name Kermit, and that's because, as it turns out, there is no Kermit.
There is no Kermit, and Elmo is already dead.
Already dead,
somehow.
That was Oscar's father,
yeah. So Oscar is a younger brother in the book, who eventually does go off to form a sellsword company in Essos after the war. But no such luck. He's going to be stuck being Lord Paramount of the Riverlands. Damn you, Kermit. Damn you. Could have followed my dreams.
They can't have a guy named Kermit that's not fighting for the Greens, right? It's not easy being green. Well, then I just won't be. He'd be called the Black Frog.
You could see the writer's room being like, no. Could you see the memes for this?
Yeah, like we just can't. Come on, guys, it's too much. It's too much.
Kermit be black. Sorry.
They could have changed his name slightly to Cormit or something like that.
Kermit?
Kermit, yeah. Kermit. So it's like pronounced like High Valyrian. Yeah.
It is bonkers. Or maybe they just, I don't know. People won't take this seriously if we like that's just one Muppet too far.
One Muppet too far. I gotta remember that line for the future somewhere. Well, that's one Muppet too far. Well, that's all we have for y'all today. We're very excited for the last 2 episodes. We'll see how our predictions go. And do you have any last thoughts? Any farther out predictions? Any kind of anything you want to say about season 3 or even season 4?
I do want to say that I find it interesting that so far, and this will be patting ourselves on the back just a tiny bit, so far the seasons are almost lining up with our Dance of the Dragon series.
That's true.
Whereas most of the stuff that I expect to see early in season 3 is from our 3rd Dance of the Dragons episode, which I was reading last night. So
that's a very good point. Well, I'll shout that out. Yes, History of Westeros and Radio Westeros have a long-running book-only series about the Fire and Blood. Dance of the Dragons, rather. And so the Fire and Blood version of Dance of the Dragons, that is. And we are 6 episodes in with 1 more to come. We've been doing one about once a year, roughly. And we're going to do a little bit more than that, too. We have a Red Kraken patrons-only episode you can get by being a patron of either Radio Westeros or History of Westeros. We're going to have the follow-up to that, which is the amazing tale of Lady Johanna Westerling, who took over rule of Casterly Rock after the death of Lord Jason and guided the fight against the Greyjoys. How about that, Lady Gwyn? That's another prediction you could make here. Do you think we're going to get any sort of Greyjoy stuff, or is it all going to be just told to us?
I would love to see that. It is, a lot of it's presented as off page with regard to all the King's Landing stuff, but they did mention him
quite a few times.
So yes, they could be setting us up to see little Red Kraken action. Maybe it'd have to be very deep into season 3 or season 4.
Yeah, they mentioned it as a possibility, like Alan mentions fighting lions and krakens, when it looks like actually you'll be fighting the Triarchy. But lions and krakens even coming to that side of the continent would be a change from the books. So I don't know if that was just meant to be unreliable narrator because they think that's what's coming and they'll be wrong.
They think it, and obviously that's what the Greens are hoping for.
Yeah, they have good reason to think that. Yeah,
offering that, but really the lions and the krakens are going to be too busy fighting each other.
Yes, yeah, because at this point the krakens haven't decided. But yeah, I guess that's what we'll hear maybe in season 3.
Yeah,
krakens just made their choice. They attack the west. Like, go figure. Attack the one they can attack that's nearby. Of course, that's the side they'll take.
It's one of those things that reminds me of. I don't know if any of you guys are fans of the Chronicles of Narnia, but in the last battle, in the last book, you get the Black Dwarves who are sitting there, and first they come in on one side for the good guys, and then later on they come in on the bad guys' side. And everyone's like, "What are you doing?" And they say, "The dwarves are for the dwarves." And that is what I always think about when I think about Greyjoys in this.
Greyjoys for the Greyjoys, and the Triarchy are for the Triarchy.
The Ironborn are for the Ironborn. Yeah, they're really not there to help either side.
Nope,
just themselves.
There's a few other characters who meet that description too. Not quite as many houses, but we'll see. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on, Lady Gwyn. Can you please tell everyone what's been going on with Radio Westeros and give everybody a reminder of where to find you all?
Yes, we have not had the pleasure of covering House of the Dragon season 2, but we are going to do a season wrap-up episode, myself and some friends, on the Saturday. That's the 10th of August, the Saturday after the finale. We'll be getting together with some friends on our YouTube channel. So you can find us on YouTube/Radio Westeros. RadioWesteros.com has links to all of our stuff, or patreon.com/Radio Westeros. If you would like to be a patron. We are in the middle of the patron rollout of our episode all about Aegon's Conquest. We did one about the Doom of Valyria a couple months back, and we're following that up with Aegon's Conquest right now. It's out there for patrons, and in a few days it will be available to the general public. So.
And we had someone in our live stream chat said they listened to your new Aegon's Conquest episode early today, and it's great, and they can't wait for everyone to hear it. Yeah.
Very nice.
Gerald Garcia, you are a patron, obviously. So thank you very much for your patronage and for that comment.
Right on. Yeah. Everybody else, check that out. I'm sure Radio Westeros did a fantastic job of it, as they always do. Such a well-produced show. Lady Gwyn is also featured in a lot of our episodes reading quotes. Not recently, but we have such a large catalog. There's a lot of them in there, and there'll be more to come, I'm sure, especially when we do the next dance episode, which we're planning on doing pretty soon after the season's over. So y'all be keeping an eye out for that. It won't be long. It'll definitely be before the end of the year. But
for sure,
if it stays on schedule, it'll be much sooner than that even. All right. Thank you to everyone who came and watched. Thank you for partaking in the content after the fact. If you are catching it on replay or just listening to the edited podcast version, thank you to Joey Townsend, Jesse Koval, and Brand the Builder for providing all the great music and production that makes our show look so cool and sound cool. Also to Michael Klarfeld for the maps. That's claradox.de if you want to get your own. KLARADOX.de. And on behalf of Ashaya, well, enjoy episode 7. Should be exciting. We sure hope it pays off. Hopefully it lives up to the hype that's bubbling through so far. And then we'll see you next week for more coverage. And you know what to do in the meantime, everybody. Valar, reread us.